They usually get, I'm going to call it the content structure wrong. I know we've spoken about this previously, but there's this concept of fragile content. And fragile content is a piece of content that, when pulled out of context, cannot stand on its own. So when you write for humans, there's a lot of context around what you're saying. Because most humans, they're not, again, they're not robots. They're not, remembering every piece of, every word that you're saying, right? So the human brain is taking context around the words that are out there and kind of summarizing it up. So again, traditionally with SEO, when you're writing your content, you give your content writer, using AI to generate your content, you're giving them a list of keywords and say, write content around these keywords. And they sparkle the keywords in and, make sure that their H1s, H2s, and all that kind of stuff is right. But with the LLMs, they are pulling fragments of content. So when you're looking at a piece of content, let's say if I have on my content, I am the best SEO expert in Boston. If I were to take that sentence out of the context of everything else on my page, the LLM is going to have, I am the best SEO expert in Boston. That doesn't mean anything, right? Outside of the context of everything else. So when you're writing your content, I like to recommend write down a list of fragments or phrases, whatever you want to call them, sentences, that are full and complete and can be taken out of context and still hold their meaning. So if I were to say, Jessica Hennessy is an SEO expert in Boston, and that's a sentence, the LLM can pull that piece of content out and store it and say, okay, well, I know Jessica is an SEO expert in Boston. And then it's going to go to all the other, sites that I was talking about, and it's going to say, all right, well, Jessica says she's this. Does G2 agree with this? Does Clutch agree with this? Does Upcity agree with this? And if they do, then they'll say, okay, that is real. When you're writing your content, you need to be very specific around pairing your brand with the message that you want to be associated with that brand. So going back to how you write your content, I like to create a list of fragments. And then, again, whether you're using AI to generate your content, do whatever you need to do, or if you're using a human to write your content, you say, here are the fragments. These need to stay intact. And then you can write around that. Because in the end, the LLMs are only going to remember the fragments. Going back to my, village elder, they don't remember every single thing that was ever told to them. They remember the highlights. So that's the way you have to write in highlights.
I see.
And it may not make the greatest storyline for a human to read, but that's what the LLM. So as this grows and as people start to change what they're, how they're generating their content, they're going to have to make that switch.